5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa, ni hao, jambo, marhaba, hail. It's time for the Armist Inquisition yet again, episode 252 on Sunday, the 16th of October, 2022. I'm Amish Phil.
I'm Amish Ben.
And I'm Amish Matt.
And tonight we've got with us a author, researcher, a cryptid connoisseur, you might say, Denver Michaels. How are we doing, Denver?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
You're on the road, aren't you? Whereabouts are you at the moment in the States?
Yeah. So basically, I travel the country full time in an RV. The old lady and we sold our house a couple of years ago and just hit the road. And right now, I'm about 20 minutes outside of Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh well, what a great place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
What could possibly be your motivation for being there?
I went over to town, and it's really cool place.
Yeah, don't they have like a McDonald's in the shape of a UFO or something?
Yeah, they got the whole town is basically alien stuff. They really embrace it, which is very cool. There's a McDonald's. It's shaped exactly like UFO. Like inside, there's the kids' playground is like UFOs, and there's this giant alien holding up a Dunkin' Donut sign. Just everywhere you look, there's flying saucers, alien stuff. It's a really quirky and fun place if you're into that sort of thing.
And so, are you sort of doing some research while you're there, investigating and just sort of checking it out? Have you been before?
Yeah, I came here. Me and my son came here about 3 years ago. So I more or less right now we're just sort of passing through the area. The wife and I were heading down to West Texas here, and so this was kind of on the way, and we just decided to stop for a week here.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of those places. I mean, it's world famous, isn't it?
It is.
Everyone's heard it. They even made a TV show about it, didn't they?
I think it was called Roswell. About a bunch of high school teenagers who were the aliens, or had they melded with aliens or something? I can't remember.
I know the show y'all are talking about, but I can't really remember it too well.
Not one that you watched then.
Yeah, not really. But there's, like here in Roswell, there's a lot of other folklore too that not so much alien related. Like I'm staying at this state park. It's called Bottomless Lakes, and you got these there are these like 10 lakes. They're really just sinkholes, filled up with water. But there's all these stories about how Billy the Kid and his gang used to hide out there. Supposedly, sort of a local legends, I guess, that back in the 80s there were sightings of these giant turtles. They say were like the size of Volkswagens. Supposedly like an octopus man. It was spotted in one of these lakes. So it's kind of if you're into weird stuff, it's just kind of an all around cool place to be, giant turtles, aliens, UFO crashes, little something for everybody here in Roswell.
Kind of reminds me, do you remember when we had Midnight Mike on? Mm-hmm. And he was talking about a potential link between UFO sightings and cryptids, and that there seems to be areas of sort of increased activity. And he was sort of speculating that there might be some sort of connection. Have you looked into that, Denver?
Well, that's certainly something that kind of comes up, even with like a lot of Bigfoot sightings. A lot of times in areas where there's been a lot of recent supposed Bigfoot activity. Sometimes there's also an uptick in UFO sightings, saying, strange lights, that sort of thing. A lot of Bigfoot researchers and people don't really kind of like to delve into that and connect the two. A lot of people feel like that sort of what I want to say. It kind of makes them look bad, right, when they're trying to prove that this is like an undiscovered animal. But there's no doubt that there's a lot of other high strangeness, with Bigfoot. And if you think about like your Mothman, back in Point Pleasant in the 60s, there were a lot of UFO sightings and other strange phenomena tied to that. So yeah, I think in a lot of these cases, there could be some sort of connection. I'm not really smart enough to figure out what it is.
This is what's kind of confusing about Bigfoot, is that there are so many different takes on it. And sort of, personally, I could see the possibility of there being some sort of undiscovered hominid with, a small population. It's somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and there was just enough of them to keep the population going. And because that landmass is so ginormous and so heavily wooded, you think, yeah, maybe there's a chance that some species would have gone undetected despite all the, satellite footage and trail cams and all the rest of it. But when we start bringing in sort of interdimensional shape-shifting, Bigfoot, it just sort of stretches the bounds of plausibility for me.
Well, I think really where that kind of comes in, at least where I will sort of at least entertain it. Like you're saying, it seems plausible. Pacific Northwest, up in Western Canada, up in these real remote places, that something definitely could be evading detection. But what you get is people from all walks of life and giving really credible testimony of seeing these things in places you really wouldn't expect a Bigfoot could be hiding, like all over the East Coast. I mean, you get these reports from like suburban places, these small parks and things like that, and you just have you got so many reports from all over the country, all over Canada. And you've really nowadays, I mean, you got a lot of people out looking for them. You've had the advances in technology with cameras, video, that sort of thing. And still nobody's been able to really, have that smoking gun evidence. So then, what does that leave you with? Is everybody just, making up their stories of sightings, or is it all just misidentification? Or, maybe is there something, more in the metaphysical realm coming into play? I don't know the answer, but that's for me, that's sort of why I at least leave that door cracked open.
Have you sort of, because I get that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be, the Bigfoot thing seems to be fairly modern phenomena. Have you been able to trace sightings back sort of hundreds of years, or to the indigenous population in North America, or is it a modern thing?
No, I think the phenomenon does go back. There are I'm certainly not an expert in the indigenous tales, but it does seem like a great many, put it that way, tribes, and all over the U.S., East Coast, out the Rocky Mountain way, have these, tales of these large, hairy beings, and even in some cases.
On the street.
Oh, it's nice that you would call me hairy. Oh, large.
But yeah, they have a lot of these tales of these these Bigfoot like creatures. And even I in my own research looking through things, you go through your old newspapers and things like that, like from the 1800s. The term Bigfoot wasn't coined till like the 1950s, but they used to call them, you look in the old newspapers of the 1800s, they'd call them wild men, hairy monsters, things like that. And you'd really be surprised how many of those that that kind of come up really before the Bigfoot craze hit the mainstream. Of course, obviously with the popularity and all that, there's a whole lot more now. But no, the phenomenon does go back quite a long ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think every culture that I can think of has some sort of tales, whether they be mythological or folk tales about different supernatural beings, for lack of a better word, or sort of weird high strangeness. We were talking before about pixies and fairies and the knockers.
Yeah, I was gonna say
we had the knockers in Cornwall, which the Cornish tin miners were famous for talking about. And when they were down the mines, they would hear this weird knocking sound, and they called them the knockers, and it was usually a bad omen. But I think they sort of had the attitude that they were there to help them. Like the knockers were knocking to say, like, get out the mine. And then that emigrated to the States and became the Tommy knockers in the Northeast.
Okay, wow.
But yeah, these things seem to be ubiquitous, don't they? Across culture, across civilization. And it just makes you think there must be something to it,
Yeah, I mean, like like in Australia, they've got they've got their hairy creatures. Down in South America, there's reports of these 6-7 foot tall ape-like creatures. So I mean, it is fairly worldwide. It seems like it's more popular in the U.S. and Canada, but that might just be because so many people seem to be interested in it or out looking for them. Who knows?
How did you get into all this, Denver? This is something that always interests me, because if you approach the average dude on the street and ask him what he thinks of the Nephilim, they'll probably think you're talking about an 80s hair metal band or something, won't they?
Yeah, I never heard of the Nephilim until
this podcast.
Yeah.
So how did you get into all this?
I can't really point to any one thing. A lot of folks in my situation, had some sort of experience in their childhood, right? They grew up in a haunted house or had a UFO sighting, or I talked to a lot of folks that, had a Bigfoot sighting or something like that at a young age. And that sort of set them on a path. For me, I've just always, I don't know. I guess I've just always been curious. Even as a young man in school, I'm the type that kind of would question everything. Whether it be history or science that the teachers would tell us. I've never believed that we know as much about our own world as we think we do, and I've just always been open to the possibilities of creatures that we think are extinct may not be extinct. I've always believed in the idea of there's strange phenomena that however it does, it just interacts with our world some way, and we just aren't able to really understand it yet. And I've just always been real open-minded about these kind of things.
Yeah, so you've had it all your life, basically, this sort of curiosity.
Yeah, since I mean, I can remember since since I was like a young man. I remember I guess I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I'm almost 50, so this goes way back. But I remember watching an episode of like what was that show, Super Friends, right? And they had one of these episodes where all the Super Friends kind of got tangled up in this parallel universe, right? There was like a evil Superman that was trying to make a volcano erupt, while a good Superman was trying to stop it from erupting. And I don't know, that like as a little 5-year-old boy, that just kind of stuck with me. Like, what if there is like this parallel universe or other worlds that sometimes kind of interact with our own? I've just always been intrigued by that sort of thing. And once you go down one rabbit hole with these things, you could be talking thinking about parallel universes, and then next rabbit hole you're into Bigfoot, and then next thing you know, it's the Nephilim and this and that.
My
It's just
personal
all
favorite.
just and then and then you're into government conspiracies and blah blah blah.
No, I think I had a similar thing with a cartoon when I was young. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon, they sent one of the bad guys 1 second into the future, and it absolutely blew my mind just thinking about what that would be like. Would it be on his own, like 1 second in the future? What would it even look like? It completely broke me for weeks, but I'm glad I forgot about it until just now. So thanks very much, Denver.
Well, yeah, and that's something that and I people, what am I trying to say? Like when you're young, just a TV show, an episode or something that you watch can really, without you even knowing it, really have a huge impact in kind of shaping you. Like for me, my interest in lake monsters and things, that really kind of got spurred for me, like in high school, watching an Unsolved Mysteries episode. It just really just kind of, it's like, bam, it's like, I just had no idea that these sightings were so widespread and all of that. So, it's funny how you can, as a little kid or a teenager, watch a show or documentary or even a cartoon, and it just kind of sort of sets you on a path, I guess.
Makes you wonder how much of a role mass media has played in this sort of explosion of interest, because today we've got YouTube channels, podcasts, we've got all the streaming sites that do sci-fi or, like I said, Tales of the Unexpected, Unsolved Mysteries. Going back, you had like the X-Files, what's the Twilight Zone before that, and before that there was radio, there was comic books, before that literature. I mean, sci-fi only really started maybe with H.G. Wells, maybe 150 years ago. Whereas like if we go back beyond that, it would have been people telling stories around the campfire that sort of ignited curiosity, telling stories about giants or the fairies at the bottom of the garden and whatever. So you were only sort of exposed to one story a night, maybe. And depending on how good your elder was at telling the story, whether your interest would be spiked or not. But now you can, like you said, like a YouTube rabbit hole. I mean, you can just expose yourself to this stuff constantly if you so wish.
Yeah, and it's really, just over the last, say, 5-10 years, it's really exploded. From there, the internet really, made things take off. But now with the YouTube streaming services, social media, social media groups, things like that. You can you can keep yourself busy with this stuff. That's kind of why, I'm actually, to the dismay of some of my social media followers, I'm kind of a big sports fan, because I got to take a little break once in a while from all this stuff, right? You just kind of, it can't be all Bigfoot, all government conspiracies, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You need to kind of unplug once in a while.
So yeah, true enough.
I was just wondering, Denver, have you got any favorite cryptids that you've, I suppose, researched? The ones that you've found the most interesting, I suppose, for you to go look into.
Well, for me, like lake monsters, I've really always believed that was probably the most likely thing to be able to exist, right? Because there's so much water, and I would like lump, you know, your sea creatures and stuff in with that, because there's just so much water, so much unexplored, you know, areas that we just don't really know what could be lurking in these places. And this is they're so hard to really capture like any kind of data for folks with these things, because it's, you know, it's expensive and there's just so much ground to cover. Like anybody can go set up camera traps in the woods, you know, hoping to get a Bigfoot video on camera or something like that. But these water creatures to me just really seem like they could definitely exist, and exist as, you know, something undiscovered, some sort of flesh and blood animal. And it's really always fascinated me, those things. As far as things that I've been able to kind of go out in the field and look for, you know, that would be your Bigfoot, or, you know, like down in Florida, their variation of it, what they call the skunk ape. You know, I think that there might be a population of, you know, some sort of feral apes, especially, you know, down in Florida. And, you know, things like that have always, those two things, I guess, have always kind of captured my interest the most.
Yeah, you just got me thinking then about sort of like recent exploration of like the ocean floor. And, you know, I think most people thought, or most scientists or whatever, thought because, you know, there was no daylight would reach down there, that it would be like a desert. But actually, you know, when they actually got down there, especially sort of around sort of hot springs and things like that, they, you know, they found an abundance of life, basically, where they weren't kind of expecting it. So it kind of points to this thing that we talk about in terms of, I suppose we kind of assume that we know everything, and there's still room for surprises, isn't there? Essentially.
Yeah, and like every once in a while, like on like you know, some of these science websites like Live Science or science.org, some of those you'll see a picture that just some bizarre looking sea creature that like you're talking about comes from like, you know, like miles down, where you wouldn't even think that anything could live. And they are just truly like bizarre looking. Yeah. It's like, you know, you know, they talk about how they're extremely rare, but you know, you don't even know. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's down there, that it's so far down. You can't really study them. And, you know, and in places like the Amazon, I mean, I think at one time they were saying like maybe like either every other day or two per day. I get the number mixed up, that they were, you know, finding that many new species. And, you know, usually they were a fish or some sort of insect. But, you know, if you're routinely finding that many new species, it, you know, kind of makes you wonder what could really be lurking out there.
Definitely. Yeah.
I just want to take Helen's question off the chat. Helen says, has Denver ever experienced the squonk? It's my favorite cryptid.
First of all, is that a real cryptid?
I've never heard of it.
Or is Helen having us on?
Have you heard of a squonk?
A squonk.
A squonk?
Yeah, SQUONK.
Yeah, I've not experienced it. I don't even. Maybe they maybe it goes by a different name over here. I don't know.
It's
I haven't experienced it.
Apparently, it lives in the hemlock forests of northern Pennsylvania in the United States. Yeah, it has a Latin name. Lacrima corpus dissolvens.
Okay, yeah, I've never experienced that, and I've been up in Pennsylvania a lot, so yeah, you learn something new every day. So I'll check that out.
What does it do?
Yeah, Google it. It looks a bit like a scrotum.
Well, maybe I won't check it out then.
Yeah, it could do with a bit of a facelift, I think, this thing. But yeah, I don't know what he does. Just hangs out Pennsylvania.
Literally hangs
Corpus
out.
dissolvens sounds like it's a dead creature that either dissolves itself, which is what it kind of looks like, or maybe it has like acid saliva or something. We could look into that.
There's that many.
Mm.
Oh, what about snallygasters?
Snallygasters, I mean, I certainly don't have any experience with those, but not far from where I used to live, back in back in the early 1900s over in Maryland. There used to be a lot of those snallygaster reports. You pull up newspaper articles from the especially like early 1930s. I want to say like maybe in the late 1920s, of how there was this kind of like flying reptile creature that was it talked about how people didn't want to come out at night and things like that. And it's really like around Frederick County, Maryland, around that area. There's to this day, it's sort of a local celebrity. There's they have like a Christmas Christmas festivity there, and I remember seeing a snallygaster carved out of a big block of ice, things like that. So it's had a lasting impact around the area there.
Yeah, there's loads of weird and wonderful ones. I remember going on that Singular 14 website, and he'd made like an appendix. And it was pages and pages, different sightings of different things, different creatures, weird and wonderful stuff. You just wonder where it all comes from, I wonder if ergot poisoning has anything to do with it. Because wasn't that something to do with the witch trials? Wasn't that linked to ergot poisoning?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'll tell you one. Have you done any research or in your books included any stories of black-eyed kids?
No, and someone asked me that a few years ago, and I haven't, and I don't intend to. And I'll tell you why. It's because it's just one of those things. It's just like so freaking creepy that, hopefully it's not true, but just on the chance that it might be true, right? I just don't want to I just ain't trying to open that door, you know what I mean? Because if these things do exist, I think that they're probably some sort of demonic activity. I know a lot of paranormal researchers don't like to, bring up demons and things, but yeah, I think those black-eyed kid things, that's got to be something from like the demonic realm. And I just it's one of those deals. They say if you start looking at them, they'll start looking at you. And I just, I got no interest in that. So
don't blame you.
You do like asking the cryptid researchers about the black-eyed children, don't you?
I do, because the stories and the eyewitness accounts are so creepy.
Yeah, they're good.
I mean, they're terrifying. They really are.
Yeah. So I don't blame you.
I don't know what to make of them.
No, I was looking on your Facebook page the other day, and you had loads of pictures of these petroglyphs on there from North America.
Yeah,
this is something you're interested in.
Yeah, big time. That's out here on the road. That's one of my main things I kind of focus on, especially as I'm traveling through the southwestern U.S. Any chance I can get to visit a petroglyph site, I try to do it, because I think these petroglyphs, some of these figures represented on these in this art, I think that kind of, some of that might tie into some of this stuff we're talking about. I mean, some of these creatures you see, they got like little antennas on their heads. I've seen out in Utah last year, I saw these petroglyphs at a ranch, and I mean, it literally looked like these two figures, they were like 30 feet up. I don't even I mean, I don't like even know how the guys making the petroglyphs got up there without a scaffold. You know, I don't even know how they got up there, but they had these figures, and it looked like they were wearing helmets, like with like a Weldon helmet lens. It looked like almost just really bizarre. And I mean, I've seen all kinds of these strange figures. These figures with these really like big chests, but they've got looks like helmets or like antenna or something coming out of their head. I've seen I've seen these that also in Utah that look like they look like they're Egyptian figures, right? And supposedly they were carved 1100 CE. So that shouldn't be, according to mainstream logic. And you just see all sorts of strange things. And I never try to pass up a chance to see one of these sites.
So are they generally scratched into the rock, or are they sort of painted with a pigment onto the rock?
Well, it kind of depends on the location. Most of them are either scratched in or it's like a series of holes. They call it pecking, where they just peck at the rock until the another layer kind of shows up. But some of the petroglyphs, if they're in a place where where the artist had access to like a good pigment to kind of like paint them, you see that too. And sometimes you see them intermingled. There's there's a site I was at in Utah last year, like on part of one of these arches, one of these natural bridges, on some of the lighter colored rock, there were all these petroglyphs, pictograms, I guess, painted in like a real reddish color. And then over like on the other type of rock over on the other side, they were like pecked and carved in. So you get both, but I think mostly the ones that are scratched in, I guess probably hold up better over time.
I wonder how they claim to date them if they're scratched in, because we can't carbon date rock, can we?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a lot of cases they're probably a lot older than they think they are, and I think that they this is where I have a lot of questions with them myself. And then when you have the there's no one alive today that can tell you what these artists were trying to say, right? I mean, everybody's essentially guessing. Even if you're an indigenous person in that area where those petroglyphs are, you still you're hundreds, maybe thousands of years removed from the people that that made them. So there's no one alive that can really tell you for sure what they're depicting. And some of the explanations for some of the things you see scratched on is I don't know, it I think like this is an alien is more believable than some of the things that the mainstream tries to say that they are.
Yeah, I'm sure the mainstream will say we found associated material, organic material, and we've carbon dated that, and because we found the charcoal near the petroglyph, therefore it's 1100 AD or whatever. But I was like in one of them tribes and I found this site with all these petroglyphs, well, maybe that's where I'm going to put my camp out that night,
Yeah, and it's the same way with a lot of your stone structures and things. They'll find a little piece of wood or something like that, but that stone structure could have been there for thousands of years, and someone new moved in on top of it or this or that. So I just don't think that they can reliably give you any kind of dates for this stuff, and even what they're trying to say, because when you have these bizarre these bizarre figures, and especially like I was talking about, these ones that I saw in Utah, where it looked like these Egyptian figures, and like one of them, it looked like he was holding a boomerang. Right? It's like nobody's going to come out and say that. Yeah, the obvious thing that it looks like. I mean, even my wife, she goes, "Ah, that looks like like an Egyptian figure." Nobody's going to come out and say that, because it kind of turns everything on its head that we're supposed to know.
Is Utah anywhere near Ohio?
No, it'd be about 1,500 miles away. About yeah,
Long shot.
Good,
Long shot.
Pretty good drive.
I read a book a few years ago from a previous guest, and called "From Egypt to Ohio," and he was showing evidence for Egyptian migration, or rather Israelite migration to North America in, I think it was around about the time of the Babylonian exile, I think, 580 BC, something like that. It was a mad hypothesis or whatever. I just think we've got a very restricted view of history and our civilization's history, and it's quite limited in how we think ancient civilizations, particularly when it comes to navigation, how they got around.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why. I mean, it's always puzzled me why, like, they think that Polynesians in canoes can go 2,000 miles to Hawaii, but nobody could have possibly made it to the West Coast, or nobody could have possibly, made it to Virginia or Ohio, or, it's like it just blows my mind how it's, how they're so against any possibility of like pre-Columbian contact here in the New World.
Have you ever looked into the possibility of the Knights Templar making it to North America pre-Columbus?
I mean, I've read some books and things on it, but I haven't really. Yeah, that's not really an area that I've really delved into that much. There's people a lot smarter than me have written stuff that'd be a lot better than what I could do on that. Just
going back to the petroglyphs, the one sort of recurring figure that interests me particularly is this squatter man, and the potential linking of the squatter man to the toroidal discharge in the sky. Is this something you've looked into, Denver?
Yeah, I mean, you see those kind of figures everywhere. I'm just, I don't really know quite what to make of them, but yeah, you see those, just all these different sites. I mean, just supposedly from, different cultures as well that, that they say made these things, and yeah, I don't really know what what they're supposed to mean for sure.
Well, no, because they didn't have there was no writing associated with them, so we're just left to sort of pick up the pieces, aren't we, and try and interpret them the best we can. But yeah, I just find it fascinating because I'm not really up to date on Robert Schoch's work on the Younger Dryas, the termination of the last ice age. I haven't read any of his books on it. But he proposes a coronal mass ejection around 12,000 years ago that ended the ice age, rather than the Younger Dryas impact theory crew. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I was just wondering if like this squatter man is like a cultural memory, like a recording of that event that's been sort of passed down through the ages. I mean, that's to me, that's certainly possible, because you see that figure, in all these sites, you just see all these recurring figures. You see that figure, you see spirals, you see zigzagging lines, you see crosses, just all kinds of the same type of figure. So it's definitely something across cultures, some sort of memory that they're trying to tell us. Yeah. Are these sites fairly well catalogued? Because I remember when we were talking to Laura, the megalith hunter in Malta, she was finding stuff that didn't seem to be on records or it wasn't well known by the authorities and stuff. I mean, do we have a pretty good handle of where all these sites are? Or are you finding new stuff that sort of no one's seen for however long?
I haven't found anything that I would say is new. Most of the places I've been to, I've been able to find either, through the Bureau of Land Management, maps, things like that. I mean, a lot of them are in very remote areas, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there were some some of these things that isn't really cataloged too well, because you go out out in southeastern Utah and northern Arizona, places like that. I mean, you can literally be 100 miles or 50 miles from any kind of civilization to speak of. Just these real, you gotta have 4-wheel drive vehicles to with high ground clearance to even get to some of these places. So and that's actually limited me to some degree in some of the places I wanted to go to. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are a lot of things out there that remain to be seen, but I haven't discovered anything new myself.
I mean, we're still finding caves in Europe, aren't we? That the people have been in them in modern times, and then there was one, I want to say maybe about a month ago, and it was only like a low ceiling, and they decided to look up at the ceiling, and they noticed that there was all these cave paintings all over it. So there must be loads of undiscovered stuff lurking about.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, and it, in the U.S. here, I mean, it's hard to tell. Out here out west, what's not large tracts of public land. There's there's just these enormous ranches, and I mean, just people out here have ranches that, I mean, you drive for like 20 miles and you're
Bill Gates has got a few, I think.
Yeah, he does. And there's like all these big cattle ranchers like out in West Texas and Arizona. And, so it's hard to tell on, some of this private property, what could be lurking on some of those places, because they have a lot of the, the same rock formations and things on their properties that you see out on the public land. And so, it's hard to tell, especially on these private tracks, what could be out there that would be really interesting to have a look at.
Robbie was just asking a little bit earlier what a snipe, or for you to tell us what a snipe was or is.
A snipe, if we're talking about the same thing, well, there is an actual bird in the U.S. It's a legitimate thing. It's just like a little bird with kind of a long beak. But snipe, if I'm understanding what he's asking, we used to like the old timers would always like play a trick on you when you'd go out in the woods or something. They'd say, we're going snipe hunting, and basically it's just kind of they get you running around looking for this supposed snipe, and it's just something that really doesn't exist, and you just it's just like a joke, kind of like that the old timers would play on you, like your grandpa would kind of get you, and like, did you have fun snipe hunting, boy? That sort of thing.
Yeah, like a wild goose chase.
Yeah, exactly. A wild goose chase would be a good way to put it there. Yeah, sort of the same thing. But there is a like a little bird that is a snipe, but that's not what the snipe hunting actually is.
Imagine if you actually got a little snipe bird.
Say, hey, it's like, hey, granddad, I got him. And he'd be like, what?
Exactly, yeah.
I'm sure there are a few of those stories. I'm thinking back to like scouts and cubs.
Yeah.
What were the tricks they used to play? Like go for a long stand? Wasn't that one?
Left-handed screwdriver. tartan paint.
Tartan paint.
Yeah, those kinds of things.
The left-handed screwdriver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a number of people go down on that trick.
Yeah. The long stand, yeah, and then the best one is if you get sent for the long stand, and you come back and obviously the person who sort of you're going to ask if I was in on it says, "Oh no, we don't have any long stands. We've got a short stand though. If you go and ask him if you want a short stand instead." So that kind of thing goes on as well, doesn't it?
Skyhooks was my favourite.
Skyhook. Yeah.
Go on. You send the lad into the wholesaler and say, "Go to the counter and ask, get us 20 skyhooks."
Yeah,
that would always get a laugh. Yeah. Oh dear. So you're in Roswell now. Where's the next stop, Denver? Have you even decided? The world is your oyster.
Yeah, we've actually got our next few weeks planned out. Our next stop, we're going to another place in New Mexico that's real close to Carlsbad Caverns, and we're going to explore Carlsbad Caverns and the Guadalupe Mountains, and then from there we'll be going down to the Big Bend area of Texas, right on the Rio Grande, and we'll be down there for a few weeks. So I'm really excited about that. That's one of my favorite places in the country. I love it down there.
Nice.
What is there any sort of cryptid motivations for going to this particular area, or is it just the landscape, the natural beauty that attracts you?
It's really more the landscape. It's a real unique area of Texas, and it's just one of the most it's actually one of the most remote areas in the U.S. So you just wouldn't believe how bright the stars are at night. I mean, you can actually see the Milky Way really good with just your eyes. You walk out. It's one of the largest dark sky communities in the U.S. and it's just amazing at night. And there's there's a lot of cool mountains and things like that to explore. And I'm just really I spent a week there a couple years ago, and it just really wasn't enough time to kind of do all the things that I wanted to do. So hopefully we're going to be able to do a little kayaking down the Rio Grande and just have a lot of fun exploring.
Sounds cool to me.
Yeah, definitely sounds good.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
There's a lot of people who'll be quite sort of envious of your way of life, the way you've sort of abandoned being settled in one spot and going on what's essentially an adventure and doing what you want to do. And how, do you find it liberating what you've decided to do?
Yeah, definitely. I guess me and the wife kind of started making these plans maybe about 3 years ago. We got our kids were in college, and my other daughter's in the Air Force, so they're out of the house, and we just kind of decided that once we got their tuition paid and that they got their own places and their own jobs, we would just kind of do something that we wanted to do. I mean, I got to that point in my life where the daily grind, the sitting in traffic and it just burn out. And I'm sure many of your listeners can relate, just burn out and just, it's like, we don't know what we need to do, but we need to do something. And we just really wanted to just kind of, explore the U.S. And so we just said, screw it. We, sold our house, we bought an RV and we hit the road. And, it's been, there's a lot of challenges to not having, not having a place to turn around and go back to. I mean, sometimes it's, you don't really have a safety net out here. You run into all sorts of challenges and obstacles and things, but, I wouldn't have it any other way. We're having, just an amazing experience and, so many places in the country that, if we weren't pursuing this lifestyle, we would never visit because, some little podunk town out in the middle of nowhere you would never see if if you weren't RVing, because there's no airport nearby. There's no real reason to go there. But some of these are like the best, most incredible, fun places and fun things that you would have never expected. So it's really been cool.
It's like I'm guilty as anyone of this. I pretty much live it within the same 2 square miles my entire life, apart from 1 week of the year where I go somewhere else for a holiday, a vacation. And I think that's the way most of us operate. It's like a completely different. Well, it is. It's a completely different lifestyle. It's sort of it's very attractive to me.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of fun. Me and the wife were kind of the same way. We had both lived in Virginia like our entire lives. I mean, I was so what, I was 40, I'm 49 now. So I was 46, 47, when we finally took off. So, you've been in the same area just forever. And it's just so cool to see how, 800 miles away, these, people live so much differently than you lived. And it's just a different food that they eat and different things that they like, and the scenery, and it's just really an amazing thing.
Have you got like a goal in particular, like you want to visit every single state or certain things? Have you set goals in that regard?
Yeah, we're hoping to have been to every state. We're hoping that would be about a year from now. That I don't think we're actually going to drive the RV up to Alaska, because that's a pretty long haul up there, and that takes a lot of planning and logistics to do that. So we probably just kind of maybe like I don't know, like leave the RV for a week in Seattle or somewhere around there, and like fly up to Alaska and, do some visiting up there. Obviously you can't drive the RV to Hawaii, but we've been there already. So that we've got that state checked off. Yeah. But hopefully within about a year or so, we will have hit all 50 states.
Wow.
Excellent.
Mm. What would be, do you have any sort of personal favorite spots that you've found, or towns where you've thought, maybe we should just stay here and buy a house?
Well, so far, I mean, I've found a lot of places I like, but nowhere that I really want to settle down at this point. That would, some places maybe put a thumbtack in the map, and if we do want to stop later. But yeah, I mean, some of my favorite places, though, I mean, I really love southern Utah, and like we were talking earlier, just like all the petroglyphs, the desert scenery. I just really, there's just incredible hiking, and not only the petroglyphs, but in that part of Utah, I mean, you could just be out on some government land, and there's like dinosaur tracks and stuff in the stone. I mean, it's just really freaking cool place. Yeah, I mean, they just there's just these random mesas with like dinosaur track ways, things like that, and it's just an amazing part of the country. I really like it there. And, I like Arizona really well, West Texas. I really fell in love with the Southwestern U.S.
Go further south and maybe go around South America following cryptid tales and things.
Yeah, I would love to get. I some years ago I went to Peru, and I've been just kind of dying to go back, and just hadn't really worked out. I'd really like to get down to Bolivia and places in Peru that I didn't get to go. So, but that's probably down the road a ways.
Yeah,
there's some pretty big petroglyphs in Peru. The Nazca lines.
Yeah. Well, there's in California, there's kind of like a miniature version of those that the wife and I visited, and like very miniature. I mean, you can kind of see them on the ground, but I'd never seen anything like it. It's a little town called Blythe, and it's sort of on the Arizona border, just out in the middle of the desert, nothing really out there. And there's just these large figures carved into the ground. I want to say they're probably, I don't know, 150 feet long, 50 feet wide. And yeah, you can't really, from the ground, you can't really see the whole thing. You can kind of get an idea like of what they are, but you can't really see them. And we actually put our drone up for a little while and took some videos of them. And I mean, it was just amazing how massive these things were. And it just, like makes you wonder, like, I mean, we were there in February when the weather was cool. And by cool, you're talking like 90 degrees, and, it's just really a brutal, hot, inhospitable place. And you just wonder why these people, I don't know, didn't have anything better to do than scratch these big figures into the desert. It's mind blowing.
We've got a couple of small ones in the UK, haven't we? We've got the Cairn Abbas Giants in Wiltshire, which is a guy with his lad out on the big side of a hill. And we've got a horse. Got a horse somewhere. I think I've seen both of those in recent times.
Yeah.
Nowhere near on the scale of, anything.
No, yeah, nothing touches the scale of Nazca. But out here in California, there are and there's some other of those. I don't know exactly where they're at, but supposedly at one time at least, or like around 200 of those. The site that I'm talking about, I think there's like 5 that we saw. And so, like, who knows what used to be there, and might be under a parking lot or something now.
Yeah, it's like it goes back to the mystery again. Like with Nazca, no one knows why they're there. What was the motivation for doing them? There's various competing theories. There was that German woman who was she basically lived on the site in the 20th century. She was there for decades, and she was like regarded as the queen of Nazca. And she was like trying to link it to archaeoastronomy, and she was trying to link it to constellations and do that. And then there's other people saying it's for a religious purpose, that they would sort of march like a procession down these lines in some sort of religious thing. But it's just complete guesswork. It's a mystery. We don't know why they did it.
Yeah, it is. It's complete guesswork. And to me, the thing that's just so baffling is, like, why are you making these huge things that you can only make out from the air? No, on the ground, you can't really tell what they are. You have to be up in the air. And like this site I was talking about in California, there's mountains off in the distance, but there's no like high vantage points, right, where you could see what these things totally are. So it's like, why? what's going on here?
Did the ancient sort of Incan gods, were they seen as being in the heavens, like in the sky, or were they more like the pagan gods of Europe, where they were just in the creatures and trees and things around us at sort of our level? Is that the only thing, apart from fucking aliens or whatever, is that they were perhaps trying to communicate with their gods in the sky? But I don't know if they had the same sort of idea as sort of modern religion does with God and a heaven above the firmament.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? And there's that's the thing.
No writing.
There's nobody you can go ask.
No, there isn't. No.
There's like nobody you can go be like, all right, hey man, what did you mean by this? It's just these things 2,000 years old or what have you. There's it's baffling.
It's like you go, but you
Fascinating.
mentioned like the pagan gods. We've got the ancient Greek writers. You can read Sophocles, you can read Herodotus, you can get an idea of what the belief systems of the time were. But when it comes to the Americas, we're running dry on it's completely up to interpretation because the writing isn't there, unless someone in the Amazon is going to stumble across like the American version of the Library of Alexandria, but it seems unlikely. Although they do keep finding these things on LiDAR surveys, don't they, in the Amazon? These huge cities that no one knew was there.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. It's there could have been great civilizations there, perhaps wiped out and other civilizations rebuilt over it. That's why I say I just don't think we know anything near about our past or even about our planet in the present as we think we do. I just don't buy it.
Yeah. Well, we've just rocked past an hour, Denver, already. Where does time go?
Time flies.
Time flies when you're talking cryptids. Right. Well, that was brilliant. We'll sign off, for this part. The links are in the show notes, guys. Go and check out Denver's website. It's up on the screen as well. And all your books are available on Amazon, aren't they, Denver?
Yeah, that's the best place to get them. Just go to Amazon.
Yeah, and you're a YouTuber as well. You got a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. I don't put up as many videos as I should, but sometimes I try to put them up when I can. Sometimes I let it slack a little bit, but
no worries. Well, it's been a pleasure. We'll sign off for this part. Stay on the line for us, Denver, while we play ourselves out.
Okay.
And we'll see you guys in 10 or 15 minutes for part 2.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet you, Denver. Ta-ra!
All right, nice to meet you.
Bye.